Good afternoon. It's October 9th, 2011. We're at the Seattle Antiquarian Book Fair. My name is Taylor Bowie, and I'm sitting here talking with my longtime friend, Mr. Ralph Sipper, bookseller of Santa Barbara, California. Ralph, thank you for being willing to sit down here and be grilled by me and have everything down for posterity. As we start out, I'd like to just get a little background on your personal life. Where were you born and raised? A little about your family and your education. Tell us about that.
Well, actually, I'll surprise you. I was born in Germany.
Oh, already I'm surprised.
And,
okay, I thought I knew.
Came to America with my family on the eve of World War II, and lived in the Bronx for 35 years. Graduated from City College, took a number of courses, taught a master's in literature at the New School, and worked as a freelance book reviewer, drove a truck briefly, and came out to California in 1967. Met my wife, Carol, there, and
That was in San Francisco?
that was in San Francisco, and never wanted to go back to live in New York, even though I love the city.
Oh, yeah.
Still consider myself a New Yorker,
I understand. Yeah.
a Bronx grad, and then about maybe 1969 or so, I had always gone to bookstores. I had always accumulated books, given them to people, traded. Used to spend a lot of time on a book row, famous book row in New York City.
That was on the 4th Avenue.
4th Avenue, right. Yeah, not far from where the Strand is now. And but the world of rare books it just was a blind spot for me. I knew it existed.
Sure.
I knew the basic workings of it. Anyway, I started going into some rare bookshops in San Francisco.
Such as?
Well, such as Peter Howard's Serendipity Books, when he was still on Shattuck Avenue.
Right.
And wanted to buy some books to read, to keep. And he had a copy of The Little Sister, Raymond Chandler, the American edition, priced $27.50. And I was outraged. What a crook. How can anyone charge that for a book?
And a used book.
Yeah. But I came back. I didn't buy the book. And I started talking to people like Peter. You asked about influences. David McGee, John Scapazzi, Franklin Gilliam. Franklin Gilliam.
I always said Gilliam.
What we all did.
It's Gilliam.
It's Gilliam. It's Gilliam. It's Texan.
Yeah.
And of course, the Emperor, Warren Howell. And before I knew it, I was down at City Hall, got my resale number, piled into Carol and I, my wife, got into a yellow VW convertible and started looking for books, mainly in thrift shops. Maybe a few used bookstores, and of course it was thoroughly impractical to go in a VW.
Some book scouting I did one time was in a small Porsche with a fellow I worked with. We learned how to jam a lot of books into it.
Oh. Well, I had books sent back.
Can't do that.
And
now you were traveling around California or
no,
all over?
back to the East Coast
In your little
to see my
car.
family.
In your little car.
In my little car.
Wow.
On the highways, and whenever I would try to pass a truck that was going a little slower than I liked, I would pull out and get sucked right back and have to tuck in again. You know. But anyway, it was a beginning. I came back through the southern route, got my kicks on Route 66, as they say, and came back and put out an atrocious little catalog of 324 items, which we sent mainly to libraries because we didn't have any customers, clients.
Now, just back up, had you been working at some job at which you then quit to do this? Or?
I was writing book reviews.
Oh, you're just doing the freelance book
freelance.
reviews.
I worked in a few new bookstores.
But I should add that, at least as of recent years, you're still doing the occasional freelance book review, don't you?
No.
No, you don't anymore?
I have, shall I say, perpetrated several hundred of those through the years, especially at the beginning.
Yes.
When the extra income was available, and it forced me to read, modern literature, which is what I started out doing.
Right.
And but about 10 years ago, I had a book column in Santa Barbara magazine. 10 years ago, I decided that the world did not have to know what Ralph Sipper thought about a particular book. There were enough other opinions going around.
Well, the world is poor for that, because the reviews of yours I've read, I always enjoy them.
So thank you. I did actually come out of retirement just last month and wrote a book review for the ABA newsletter, because there's a wonderful new Hemingway bibliography out. Oakmo published it, Edward Grissom. It's a wonderful bibliography.
Great improvement on the long-time Hanneman one.
Oh, yeah.
Well, that's good to know. This first catalog you issued, other thing I wanted to ask about is the original name of your business. Could you tell us a little bit about that and how you selected that? I mean, it's a story I know, but our viewers probably don't know.
Well, I named it after my grandfather, who was the center of our family. And the first books that I encountered were while I was sitting on his knee, maybe 3 years old, and they were Hebrew prayer books, the Talmud, and he would read those to me in Yiddish. And they were never really my cup of tea, but it was part of my heritage. And from him I learned a reverence for books. It was so obvious for him. So then, when we started our little enterprise in 1970, I decided Joseph the Provider, because we were presumably going to be providing books, because of the literary illusion of Thomas Mann. And it took, although in those days, people quickly started to refer to me as Joe the Pro.
Yes, and even though some people still do, even though the name is now associated with another business, but I still hear people refer to you.
Well, I can tell you about that if you like, very briefly.
All right.
My oldest friend, Larry Moskowitz, whom I met in kindergarten when we were 5 years old, watched me sail out into these treacherous waters, bookselling. And about a year later came along, and he was working for Israel Bonds as a speech writer, and so he also did some freelance writing for them.
Was he in the advertising business at some point?
That's his brother.
Okay.
But anyway, Larry came in with us, and that enabled me to stay closer to home.
We should add that Larry, for many, many years, lived in New York City.
He did. He did, and came to California.
Yeah,
But that was, 5 or 10 years later. In a way, it was good because it gave us a bicoastal operation. Because in those days, as you well know, most booksellers got their inventory by going into big general used bookstores.
Right.
Amerton's and St. Louis and just a dozen places like that.
And this, of course, was all pre-internet.
Of course.
There was no easy way for a lot of smart booksellers to quickly check on something.
No, but that was the most fun I have ever had with books. Going to acres of books in 100-degree weather and looking at books that were on plywood shelves, thousands of them, finding a Carolyn Gordon in first edition for $1, which I then promptly priced, I think, $5.
Well, that was a good markup.
It is.
I found a Wallace Thurman novel and jacket in a general store in Seattle and done for $2.
The Black and the Berry.
No, unfortunately, no.
The Intern.
The Intern, yeah. But I think I priced that $200.
Mm-hmm.
That used to be the kind of thing you could do. Well, you put out this first catalog of 324 items.
And sent it mainly to libraries.
How was it received?
Well, it was a shock. In those days, libraries would you mailed them, snail mailed them.
Right.
And then libraries would send you purchase orders. And one day, I got a purchase order for 52 books. This may not have been the first catalog, but it was
Early.
early innings. 52 books from the University of Waterloo. Big fat envelope. And wow, there were some very expensive books in there. Some of them were priced as high as $20. And mostly they were $5, $10, and $15. There were a couple of $100 books.
Ooh.
But
that must have been, was that your first large quantity library sale?
at first and last.
Oh. That I don't believe. But you had settled in Santa Barbara. You never had a store, though. You always...
Still in San Francisco. No, we were up in Inverness.
Excuse me. Yeah, you're not in Santa Barbara.
Outside of San Francisco.
Okay, the San Francisco area. How long did you stay up there, and then what brought you down to Santa Barbara?
The weather.
Yeah, that's a good reason.
Close proximity to Los Angeles. A change. And one thing I did learn very quickly was that knowledge is the paramount thing. You want to be a better bookseller? Know more books. You don't want to know more books? Know one book or 10 books better than anyone else.
Or 1 or 10 authors.
Yeah, well, authors, periods, literary history, and
Focus in on something.
yeah.
And would you say that your emphasis on modern literature, that was, you kind of alluded to that it was the result of your doing a lot of literary reviews of contemporary
That was
works?
partly so. Also, it was the easiest way to start. And I'm if I had to do it all over again, I might have been a little more adventuresome. And I'm going back now to that thought. Now that maybe I'm getting ahead of you, let's talk about today, the internet.
Right.
We modern first dealers used to go to a book fair, and the crowning ambition was to have the best copy in the room of Catcher in the Rye. You get maybe 5 copies. And that business model doesn't work anymore because if you go on the internet, there were 50 copies.
Yeah.
They're different. The condition, price, some don't have dust jackets. But in a sense, what we unknowingly were telling the world was that these things are really scarce. Well, as they came out of the woodwork, it turned out that. So anyway, today, why I'm here in Seattle at the book fair as a buyer, I'm looking more for not unique things. I mean, that's too highfalutin, that's too difficult. But I am looking for singular material.
That's an excellent distinction to make.
Yeah, and material that has to satisfy at least three conditions. Importance, some kind of importance, literary, musical, and then scarcity or rarity, and then the last but not the least, fine condition.
Absolutely.
And I learned very quickly to pass up lesser copies that I probably could have done something.
Sure.
That's just my way of doing it. That one of the things about the book business, as you well know, is it's one of the purest forms of capitalism that exists. We put a price on a book, and you have total freedom to do so.
Yeah, that's right.
You put them in a catalog or bring them to a book fair, and if you make a mistake, well, that's okay. But if you keep making mistakes, the old rule of thumb about a catalog, when you issued one, the ideal was to get one order and one order only for every book in your catalog. That's the ideal. If you got 4 orders for the same book, maybe you're pricing it too modestly. If you get no orders, hey, maybe you're not in touch. So,
did you ever have a catalog where every item was sold?
No.
No, I never did either. One time I hit 80%, and I was quite giddy about that.
I bet.
You touched on something that I've spoken with a lot of people about, and I really like your choice of the word singular, because the word unique is bandied about. It just doesn't mean anything.
That's right.
But the kind of material you're talking about, what it boils down to really, is the kind of material that cannot be shopped around, or you can't do comparison shopping on the internet. So if you want this particular thing, this is the only one. It's just like this.
Right, and then one hopes that there is one person who wants it.
Yeah, who understands the connection. This would also include association copies, which have always been one of my favorite things, to make some kind of connection between the owner of the book, the recipient of the book, whatever, and the subject or the writer.
Right. Many years ago, I forget who, but somebody of means was collecting books inscribed by authors, authors who are collected, books inscribed to their family, to their mothers. Now, how much more intimate can you get than that?
Yeah, the closest thing. Whenever I think of family inscriptions, I think of the oddest one I ever had was Justice William O. Douglas. I had a book inscribed to one of his sons, and it was the most perfunctory, I wouldn't say cold, but just neutral kind of expression. I can't recall exactly what he said, but it bothered me for a long time. But it was very revealing too, so it was a great book.
Well, it gave you insight into others.
Absolutely, yeah.
One other thing that that I've done through the years, and I think you know this, is even in the good old days, one never sold enough to go out to buy whatever.
Right.
At least I didn't. Always too many books out there that I wanted that I couldn't afford to buy. So I started doing appraisals through the years. And then, because I was selling modern literature, I got to know many contemporary authors, some very important ones, many of whom are now no longer with us. And occasionally, I would be able to act as their agent and ferry their papers into a university library.
Can you give us a couple examples of that? I think I can maybe guess a couple of them.
Well, I'll tell you about one. It's public knowledge. I wrote to John Fowles in the early 80s and asked him about his papers. Did he have any plans for them? You know, and of course I told him, as I did, that I admired his books. And he wrote back a very courteous little note and said, but I already have a literary agent. So I wrote back and said, no, I don't mean literary agent, I mean an agent.
Yeah.
Anyway, I went across the ocean to Dorset, met with him, and he was, after we talked, he was perfectly willing to consider it. And so I came back a second time with Tom Staley of Texas, the HRC, Humanities Research Center, and hammered out the deal. And about 2 weeks later, I came back for the third and last time with my designated packer, my wife Carol, and packed up 500 pounds of paper and in Dorset, you know, French lieutenant's women's country, and watched FedEx come and pick up the papers, load them into their truck, and those books were in Austin, Texas. I mean, the papers were in Austin, Texas, before I had gotten back and was experiencing the last stages of jet lag.
Oh my God!
So it was a lot of fun.
That sounds like one other writer I'd like to bring up, because I know you were connected with him and close friends with him, is Ross MacDonald, and that you also actually, am I correct that you arranged the publication of some of his little limited editions? Did you have anything?
No, no. Capra Press published 2 Ross MacDonald books. One. Well, actually, one. It was a series of autobiographical essays that he wrote. I did a little forward for it.
Okay.
And then after Ken died, maybe this is what you're referring to, we published a little festschrift, 25 writers. It's called Inward Journey, which was Eudora Welty's title from Great Gatsby. And we did publish that under the Cordelia Editions.
Right. Cordelia being the name of your daughter.
My daughter.
And how is she doing, by the way?
Well, she's doing fine. She's still writing songs. She stopped performing because she now has 2 little girls.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, she's been married 7 years.
Right.
And but she's coming back, and she's going to
Perform again. That's great.
And issue CDs.
Very good. Well, I have one of hers. But, look forward to being kept in the loop on that. You also, one of my favorite books that I have, I can't remember the exact title, but I believe it's called 2 Santa Barbara Authors in the Bookseller. Is that the name of it?
You missed by one.
3.
3.
Okay.
Yeah, this is when I was doing the column for Santa Barbara magazine. I did one on Ken Miller, Ross McDonald, one on John Sanford,
Right.
and the third on Robert Easton.
Who is still with us, as I understand?
No, this is the California Robert Olney Easton, who wrote historical novels.
Oh, pardon.
Yeah, and he wrote, I forget the name of his big, he was a contemporary of Steinbeck's.
Right.
And, The Happy Man.
Happy Man. Yeah,
Published
right.
a book called The Happy Man, which at the time, I think in the 30s, was considered by critics on a par with Steinbeck's early books. Anyway, I just collected those three essays and
But then added the
and
books.
added Story of a Bookseller.
Right, which is
Wow.
so beautifully written. I have read it a number of times and I just love it. And anyone seeing this film, I would urge you to go out and find a copy of that and read it.
Don't believe a word of what you read.
Well, it read well anyway. I've been told by others that bookseller memoirs are generally kind of colored. Which, why not? You know, why
We
not?
swap lives.
That's right. We talked a little bit about the internet and how it revealed that a lot of books that we generally thought were at least scarce or uncommon are not that at all. They're easily available to anyone wants to send someone an email. So that might be the downside for a lot of booksellers. But how would you describe the advantages that the internet has brought to our trade?
Well, as you probably know, I'm a technologically challenged being.
I understand.
On the other hand, I love email.
Mm-hmm.
I can fire off 4 or 5 exchanges with somebody, get virtually instant replies. The way I use the internet is, one, I like to see what's out there, a particular title, a particular author. And then I can also look for obscure, or that's not the right word, sleepers, books that I want, books that I know about. And
Or as you mentioned earlier, the singular copies.
so, yeah, and you can get, people would say you can get lucky, but it's not all luck.
No.
Branch Rickey, old Brooklyn Dodger general manager, once said, luck is the residue of design. And so
That's
if you have an idea of what might possibly be out there, you've got a better chance of finding it than walking out into the street and seeing it lying in front of you on the sidewalk.
well, and we've always known people in the trade look at books differently. I mean, I've mentioned a lot of times, somebody might come and say, well, that's just a shelf of old fiction in poor condition. And I'll look at it and say, yes, but it has an ownership signature in each of them of so-and-so.
Of course.
And this keeps us going. Well, I'm enjoying this so much that I've sort of started to run out of time. So just briefly, do you plan on retiring?
Why?
That's enough.
What I'm doing, I don't consider work. As long as I can still do
I hear
it.
you. What do you see as the future of the book trade, the antiquarian book trade in particular? Is it a healthy thing?
I don't know if I can really answer that. Who could have predicted
Yeah.
10 years ago the vast changes that the internet,
Yeah.
the dying out of the big general stores,
Yeah.
the havoc that would wreak?
Whoever thought the AB Weekly would vanish?
Oh, yeah, or International Bookfinders.
Oh, Dick Moore, our old friend. Yeah, the book search. Now people do their own searches.
That's
But
right.
I think each of us are going to can be optimistic because we're going to go ahead in our own way, like what you're doing.
Well, you know, we're in a Darwinian business.
Oh, absolutely.
And if we are giraffes and want to get the last leaves that are high up, then over a period of time, we have to evolve. We have to stretch our necks.
Yeah.
It's survival of the fittest. If we don't, well, then we perish.
Just to...
Tape or whatever.
We're running.
I couldn't tape it.
Well, we're only supposed to do a half hour.
That's fine.
Well, thank you very much, Ralph.
Oh, yeah.
It's been a great
Yeah,
pleasure.
you've got a career ahead of you.